So this is a very difficult topic, yeah. Okay, let's take a look. So today, the history of individuals living house. Yeah. So it's good that you've tried to like change the words in the first sentence, so that's good. The history of an individual. The only problem is like we don't really say in English like an individual's living house. So be careful. Sometimes if you translate from Chinese, so if you translate 2 words or 3 words in a row from Chinese into English to make like a phrase, if you just translate it like that, then it will always 100% always be wrong, right? So you want to be careful about translating it from Chinese to English. It's okay with like one word sometimes, like if you change the word dog to dog in Chinese to English, it's okay. But when you're changing like 2 or 3 words from Chinese to English, then it'll always be kind of wrong. So the history of an individual's house seems to fascinates a little bit too strong. You can say interest more and more homeowners. In English, we say homeowners. That's who they are. So don't waste too much time on this sentence. Yeah, so just change a few words from the topic, but write this sentence quickly. Some students like waste too much time trying to write this sentence 100% perfect and change everything perfectly. That's not really important. Just kind of change it quickly, change a few words. You want to like save time, okay? So don't waste too much time. Write this sentence fast. I think the technological, the adjective is technological. This is the adjective. Development and higher quality of life. Yeah, that's okay. Or higher quality of life or higher standards of living. Likely is more formal, more academic. It's a little bit informal. And research methods should depend on which areas of the site. Yeah, so there's good grammar and vocab there. Good grammar and vocabulary. That's good. So no issues with that. And it's like short and simple, 2 sentences. So that's good as well. You have like clear answers to both questions. So that's good. If you get some of the other topics, the ones that ask you about agree, disagree, or discuss both sides, always make sure you have a clear opinion as well. Never sit in the middle.
I saw your blog in the website.
Okay, so you've seen that information. Yeah. So that's good. You've answered both questions really clearly, so that's good. But this is a really, really hard topic. This is a difficult one because, yeah, it's just kind of a strange topic, but it's okay. The first reason why, greater variety of people. It's not really greater variety, it's greater number of people are. Obsessed is, again, too strong. You can just say, like, interested in. The history of their house or home is, yeah, so you want to be careful. This sentence is like way too long, right? So like your topic sentence should be about like 10 to 15 words, like kind of short. This one is like 100 words, right? So you want it to be like a lot short. So like the first reason.
I include my explanation both.
Yeah, so you can just say like relates to technology.
Okay.
And then it's just like short and simple, and then that's like 20 words. So that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
As technology has developed in recent decades. Residents is a little bit more specific. People is a little general. So you can say individuals, residents, homeowners, interested people. You can easily get information from social networks like TikTok, which yeah, again, I would try to break it up into shorter sentences. Yeah, these applications often contain short videos that history. Yeah, again, try to break it up. For instance, their house might have been in yeah, so this is okay, but it's a little bit weird because you're saying that like, you know, the proliferation of technology, the spread of technology and like social networks and so on. But like videos on TikTok aren't really about a person, like the history of a person's house normally, right? Like that's not like a normal thing. That's not like most videos aren't about that. So this is like this is very rare, but like you make it sound very common. It makes it sound like every video on TikTok is about a person's house, and every house on TikTok, it used to be like the king lived there thousands of years ago. It doesn't really make sense, right? Like that's not really the case. But you just need to like change it a little bit. So like it's the fact that they might see people talk about their house, and yeah, like so these can short videos, and so you want to make it, and these may feature, right? And these may feature a vlogger, yeah, discussing, or even better, if you gave an example, if you said something like, for instance, there was a recent viral, you know, TikTok, so, so try to make it a little bit more like it's like one specific example, even if it doesn't have to be 100% true. You can kind of make it up, you know, like maybe it's kind of true, kind of not true. That's okay. But then this sounds more realistic because it's like one person, maybe they make a video, it's about their house, the history, but then other people see it and they become interested in their own house, right? So like, yeah. And when you link between sentences, try to like link the ideas, right? So instead of just use like the word this is okay, so that's good, using the word this, but you can be even stronger. You can say like watching this video. This kind of like links the sentences very clearly together. So watching this video, many viewers, you can say users, decided to research history, own home, discover it historical. Yeah, so then that's like a little bit, your last sentence is good. You kind of state the result, lots of people watch it. So it's about like, it's more about social media than technology, right? So you can change, sometimes you write your paragraph and like technology is a little bit too general. It's not really so much about the internet. It's more about social media and kind of like the influence. You can say like the influence of social media or influencers on social media. Yeah. So you can like change your topic, your main idea in your topic sentence to be more specific And this will help your cohesion and coherence scores and your task achievement score. But overall, you've got the right idea for the paragraph. Like it's a good structure. So like good structure, sentences, good ideas, it's clear. You just need to be a little more specific and make sure that your ideas make total sense the way that you say them. So sometimes students will try to make a point that's like too strong, you know, like every single person on TikTok posts videos about the history of their house, and you don't need to say that, right? Like it's not true, and like it doesn't really make sense, but you can say like, oh, sometimes there's some video and it gets popular and then some people get interested, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be like every single person. It could just be some people, and this sometimes happens, okay? So don't try to like generalize. Don't over generalize, I guess would be the key thing, right? Don't over generalize to try to make your argument super strong. You know, so they want to make it so strong and perfect. You know, like a weak argument is better. You want to have like a weaker argument that sometimes this might happen in some people. It's more specific, it's more realistic, it's more believable.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually you shouldn't write 5 paragraphs, but for this one, because it asks you about what are the reasons with an S, what are the reasons? So that's okay, because it's plural, so okay. But usually just write 4 paragraphs. But for this one, it's okay to have a 5th paragraph.
Okay.
Another cause, is the continuously rising quality of life in most countries around the world. Yep, that's good. Good phrase. Accurate. Good vocab and grammar. As people's living conditions improve. SOAR is a little bit too strong.
Mhm.
But again, be careful with like using, you know, don't write with thesaurus. In English, there are no synonyms. So you can't just change one word for another. It will usually be wrong. And so yeah, it has to be like, you know, that word works in this situation. You know, it can't just be like, I looked up another word that sounds like that, or another word that's more academic. It has to be like, does this word actually work? Okay.
Okay.
And same thing here. This sentence is like too long, right? So like break it up into smaller sentences that are more accurate. You know, you can't just have like 2 sentences in a paragraph. You want 4 to 5 sentences in a paragraph. You know, some can be short, others can be longer. Okay, but you don't want to have like just one really long sentence. Focus their attention on health. Yeah, again, then you can put a period. Yeah. This development. Again, when you link between the sentences, instead of just saying this, always use this development or this change or this mindset or this shift in society. So always try to like substitute between the sentences to link your ideas better. Means that they often history of their house. Ascertain. Ascertain means figure out. It's formal work. If it description. Structure. Structurally unsound is like kind of like unsafe, like the walls might fall down or something. Yeah. Yeah, so that's good. That's a good paragraph. You've got some good specific ideas. You develop the idea pretty well. It's the same thing though, just like break it up into more sentences to develop your idea a little more slowly. Always try to be like a little more specifically. And then at the very end, you can state the overall results. But yeah, just kind of like slowly take your time with it. Don't just write one long sentence like that. So I think you might want to like take a look at some of your old writing. You probably got some old essays. So look at some old essays and break up the paragraphs from one long sentence into a few shorter sentences. Yeah? And be more specific. So you go back some of your old writing, you can try to like apply the ideas that I tell you. There are two different ways is okay. Methods a little bit more formal. Two different methods for researching the history of persons. You can just say of a house. You don't need to be so wordy. It's a little bit too wordy. Firstly, if the house is located, still around today, is located in a major city. So be careful with your collocations. Majority means most of, so we just say a major city. So that's like an English collocation, which means like a phrase that we use a lot. So if you saw some of my sample answers before, you can start to like, you can see after the sample answers, a lot of the time I will write down the vocab. So like study some more phrases like that from my samples. And when you do it, make sure that you are looking at one or usually like 2 or 3 words together. Just learning when it's like one word by itself, it's not as important if it's like 2 words. So for example, learning the words like, I don't know, unfortunately or something. That's not as important as it is to learn a word like major city. So like 2 words together, major city. And then that's a collocation. That's a phrase you can use again and again and again in English. And just try to start learning as many of those as possible. Which has meticulous historical recordings. Instead of you can say one. And easily history, the internet, or by reading related reference materials. Yes, good. So that's a good sentence. If you can give an example, that's really good. So like this process is possible. Now, basic. Just like a little bit more of a specific example if you can. So try to include more specific examples, like real city, real people, like a real company, a real person. Be as specific as possible. However, if Remote area. Unfortunately, yeah. Again, break it up into more sentences. We'll have to consult communities, consult with communities, residents. Oral history. Yeah, these accounts. So again, always like a little bit more detail is good in shorter sentences. So that's like the main thing for you, shorter sentences. More specific detail. In conclusion, interest in the history of one's house is caused by technological development or the development of media and yeah, you can paraphrase it a little bit. Higher standards of living, such as it can be researched the internet, asking generations for help. Yeah, so that's good. Good sentence to summarize. You summarize your ideas specifically, so that's really good. You can also, if you have time, you can include one final thought. So it's just anything short. It's like one final thought at the end. You don't really need it, but it's good if you can include one final thought. So the 4 things you get marked on for your score for this one. Grab that. There's 4 areas for the band scores. You get marked on your task achievement, vocabulary, your grammar, and your cohesion coherence, and that gives you like an overall score. So just copy this over. So yeah, for yours, these are the 4 areas you get marked on. So for your task achievement, you've got good ideas. You answer both questions. Good ideas. Some really good support, but it could be more specific in detail. But you do a pretty good job with this. It's definitely a 6. You could even almost get up to a 7. So it's like getting close to a 7, but not quite at a 7. So probably a 6. Your cohesion coherence, you've got like clear paragraphs. You do have most sentences, you have kind of like topic sentences. You have a really good structure, but it's like the problem is you have like some sentences are way too long. So I think you can still get a 6. It might drop to like a 5, but it's probably okay for a 6. But just like kind of write a little bit shorter sentences, you can probably get that up almost to a 7. Your vocab as well is good, but basic. So you repeat a lot of words, and it's often informal. So there's parts that are not formal enough. So it's not really at the level of a 7, but it's still pretty good, still pretty strong. Your grammar, same thing. This is the only one that might drop to like a 5, or maybe a 5 or a 6, because there are lots of mistakes in most sentences. It's probably still okay for a 6. There's good complexity with those long sentences. So probably still a 6. So your overall score is probably a 6 if you do that. And the ones you want to move up, you can probably get these 2 up to a 7 fastest. These 2 might take more time to get up to a 7. So like kind of focus on these 2 and trying to get them up 7. And then if you get, like 7, 7, 6, 6, then you can get like a 6.5 overall if you do that. So those are the 2 that I think you should work on the most to try to get them up to a 7. Okay? Do you have any questions about it?
Yes. So these ideas take me very long time, and maybe in the real test, I can't finish my essay. So I need to maybe collect more ideas, but the time is not enough.
So I think a lot of that just comes from practice. So like the more that you practice, the more that you'll be able to like write ideas faster and faster. So if you don't practice much, it can be slower. You can also try some different ways to brainstorm. A lot of times it helps students to like think from someone else's perspective. So for example, instead of thinking like, okay, what do I think? Why do people research the history of their house? You can say like, okay, what would my mom say? Or like, what would a politician say? What would a construction worker say? What would an architect say? What would a police officer say? And so then it's almost like you're not thinking of the idea. It's like, what would the other person say? So then you might say like, oh, my mom would say she's doing it for her health. Maybe my mom would say it's about her health. A politician would say it's about history or something. Construction worker might say it's about safety. An architect might say it's also about safety, or about like art, about how like beautiful it looks. And then you can look at those different ideas. So you don't think of the idea. It's like someone else thought of the idea. Your mom, a politician, a construction worker. And then you can decide like, okay, this idea is good and this idea is good. So I'll write about these 2 ideas. Yeah, so that you can just try to think from someone else's point of view. And for some students, that makes it faster. And then when you think of the idea is not important, right? So like these ideas are not important, right? You don't need to write an amazing idea like you're writing a book or something like that. You just need like a normal, okay idea. That's all that matters. Just normal, simple, easy idea. What matters, what is important, is your support, like your example. If you can give a specific example, if you can develop it well, that's important. So when you're thinking of the idea, it's just like, what's the normal, easy idea that anyone would say? Nothing special, nothing to make you look smart, just like a normal idea. But then when you develop it, that's where you want to look smart.
And in the opening part, the first paragraph, I saw your website, and I have some. There is a big gap, and you always in your old essays, just like always write the personally, or maybe you always write personally. It's your opinion. So should I imitate your?
In general, but you can see this question is like a little bit different. It says like, what are the reasons for this? How can people research it? So you don't have to say, in my opinion. It's not really important. You don't have to say that. I mean, there's lots of different ways to say, in my opinion, I think, I believe. You did that already. You said, I think that. That's fine. That's good. Totally fine. For other essays, if it says like, do you agree or disagree? You don't have to say the words, in my opinion, but you can. I mean, it doesn't matter. Even for this one, you can use, in my opinion. You could say, in my opinion, technological development, blah, blah, blah. it doesn't really matter. It's not important.
Oh.
What's important is that you actually say your opinion. Like the words you use, you don't have to say "in my opinion," but you have to say your opinion. But you do that, so you did a good job with it here.
Okay. And should I can you give some advice? Is that I should practice in one paragraph and one paragraph, or the whole essay, or write a whole essay?
I think it's much better to practice like one thing at a time. So for example, one of your problems is like writing topic sentences. So maybe like take a look at some new topics. So you can take a look at like real ones. Don't use fake ones. Use some real ones. You can take a look at some real ones, and then but don't write the whole essay. Just write your topic sentences. So that's like 2 sentences, right? Right, just simple, right? And then check with my sample answers. And maybe you can learn something. Maybe yours were too long, or they're too wordy, or there's a piece of grammar or vocab. You can learn something, right? So like learn something from my sample. Okay? And then you can move on to something after that. And now you might decide like, okay, now I want to work on my examples. So again, do the same thing. Now like write an example for a new topic or for the same topic, for any topic. Yeah. Again, 2 to 3 sentences, not too long, maybe like 3 sentences. Make it like really specific, not too long, your sentences. And then again, same thing, check with the sample answer. Try to learn from it. Is there any vocab or grammar or ideas you could do a little bit different? And then do the same thing. Maybe like write an example for another one. Mm-hmm. Kind of like keep working on it. Keep working on this one skill for a while. And keep practicing that one skill again and again. You can think about it like almost like a football player. So like a football player might practice, shooting over and over again. They might just work on their shooting again and again and again. And then when they finish practicing shooting, they might practice passing. They might practice that over and over. They work on their passing. And then later, at the end of the week, then they play a full game. But when they're playing the game, they can't like develop their shooting or their passing. That's not how they improve. When they play the game, then they're just like seeing if they can do the stuff they worked on before. So it's the same thing for you. So like practice skills, it could be your topic sentences, examples, topic sentences, introduction, conclusion, whatever it is, anything. Practice those over and over again, just like a football player working on a skill. And then later, write a full essay. Later write a full essay, and then like see how much progress you make based on that. And then you can gauge how well you're doing. Okay? Any other questions about the first one?
No. Let me move to the task 1.
All right, let's take a look at your task 1. Give out your spelling at the beginning. Illustrate the proportion of household cats. Electrical appliances. Be careful. It doesn't really like talk about washing clothes, preparing meals, cleaning. Right? Portion of. So it's more about like the number of electrical appliances used and average hours of housework per week per household from 1922. Or between, you can also use between and. But again, same thing with the last essay. This sentence, don't waste too much time on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just write it quickly. How long did it take you to write this whole essay? How long did it take you to write the essay?
Nearly half hour.
So you want to try to get to about 20 minutes. And on the real test, do your task 2 first. It counts for more. So like finish that one first and then move on to task 1 afterwards. But you want about like 40 minutes for task 1. Or sorry, for task 2. 20 minutes for task 1. It can be a little bit different, but around that much. Right. Overall, both ownership of various appliances increased. You can just use past simple. It's just like a finished event in the past. Use past simple. It goes to 2019, and the increase in the use. Refrigerators is not. You don't capitalize these. They might do it in the chart, but you don't do it in your writing. Refrigerators and vacuum cleaners was considerably higher than that of washing machines. That's really good. Good overview there. That's excellent. You've got the full trend. Like what went up, what went down. You've also got some ranking as well, which one was higher and lower. So all that is really good. Meanwhile, it's a little bit informal. So you might say moreover, time used, or house week, underwent a consistent. Yeah, what seen is a little bit weird. You can say like underwent or experienced better. But yeah, that one's also a clear trend. So this is a really good overview. Definitely a band. Being a 7 to 9 overview. So it's great. You probably still want to keep practicing your overviews because a lot of students will make mistakes with those. Even though this one was good, keep practicing your overviews. And just like the way we talked about with task 1, like with your topic sentences or with your examples, find the chart, write the overview, check with my sample answer, and learn from it. What was wrong, what was right, what are you doing, what can you change about it, and then like repeat over and over until you feel confident. Just like a football player might feel confident with their shooting. So keep practicing it over and over until you feel better about it. You can use these sample answers here if you want.
Okay.
Start a period. And try to learn some of these. These are called like fixed expressions. So we don't change any words in them. We always write them the same at the start of the period. Right? So it's always all those words. So just kind of like memorize some of those, and you'll see the same ones, like the same ones come up in different sample answers. It's easier for these ones to learn these phrases than with task 2. Because task 2, there's so many different topics. With task 1, you'll see a lot of the same phrases, a lot of the same vocab again and again. So it can be a little bit faster for you to learn these, right? So you can learn these faster than you can for task 2. And since you only have a week to practice, focus on improving these. Washing machines. Instead of have, you can say represented, large proportion at 40%. Proportion, it's okay, yeah, percentage followed by vacuum cleaners. 30% refrigerators. Those some of your grammar, 5%. It's also good to say what it is, because you're just saying like represents what. It's like it's about like the number of households that own it, So it's like 40% of households owned a in 1920. So at the very beginning, you might want to say like, what does the percentage actually mean? not just say the percentage, like is it 40, because what does that mean, 40%, right? So like say what it actually means in the first sentence, and then after that you can be a little bit more relaxed. You can be more relaxed after the first sentence. In 1940, ownership of refrigerators surpassed that of vacuum cleaners, reaching approximately 50%. Nearly equal with ownership of washing machines. And include the data, right? So like whatever the data was here, like I don't know, 53% or whatever, use parentheses like you did here to add in all the data. So just include as much data as possible. This will help your task achievement. For ownership of refrigerators and vacuum cleaners. So do be careful about proper nouns. So those would be like companies or people or countries or cities. Those things are all proper nouns, but like objects are not proper nouns, so no capital letter. It doesn't matter what they do in the chart. So a lot of times in the chart, it'll have this capitalized, but then when you write it, you shouldn't use the capitals, even though it has it there. That's just because it's in a chart. They do it like that. I'm steadily, and both of them reached peaks at 100% between next. Yeah, this is a little bit like when did they actually reach their peak? It's a little, if you can be a little bit more specific, right? Like refrigerators was in 1980 and vacuum cleaners was in 2000, right? I think you meant 1980. 1980 and 2000 respectively. All there was, be consistent with your tense. Past tense. There was fluctuation in ownership of washing machines during the same time period. At the end of the period, ownership, yeah, you could say of or for, of refrigerators, vacuum cleaners. You can say reached or plateaued at 100%, all that, washing machines. Reached a high of like 75%, right? Reached a high. So be a little more specific with your data. And some of that I feel like you could have done in the last sentence. You kind of like waste a little bit of time because you already talked about the 100% here, and then you talk about the 100% here again. So it's kind of like you waste a little bit of time describing it. So this is another skill that you can practice, just like we talked about not writing the whole essay when you write task 2, writing about, your overview is good, but writing about data. So like you have a little bit trouble writing about like lots of data in one sentence. So you can practice this one skill. Same as we talked about before, find a new chart or a map or process, write about the data. But you don't have to write the whole essay, just like a couple of sentences. Try to include as much data as you can in a sentence, like 2 or 3 or 4 pieces of data, and then check with the sample answer. And then you might notice like a piece of grammar or a piece of vocabulary, like maybe the word respectively, which is really useful. You weren't using it, but then you see, oh, I can use that word. And then like learn a word like respectively or a piece of grammar, and then practice with it. And then slowly you can start to use it on your own. That's how you learn. That's how you get better. And then later write a full essay after you practice with that a few times. Housework. Used or maybe like expended is better. People in 1920, spend 50 hours per week doing housework. Again, and yeah, it's okay. You can use one sentence. Okay, and this figure dramatically. Usually it's verb plus adverb. Or you can do adjective plus 20 hours per week. You can use this word a little bit, it shows a little bit more contrast than this figure. Reduced dramatically by 1960. Yeah, that's good. Or the remainder. More gradual. With 50%, 1980, 2000, and 4%. Yeah, so that's good. Like lots of good data there. So you include lots of data. That's good. You might have some problems with the time. You can see it's a little bit long. So you want to try to be just like a little bit more concise, like a little bit shorter with some of your writing, not so wordy. That might help a little bit with the time. So you're not just kind of like writing the same thing over and over, repeating the same data. Try to put more data in one sentence. And that might help a little bit with your time. So for this one, but your task achievement is really good for this one. You can probably get a 7. You're missing some data. And you could compare between sentences more often. But you've got a really good overview. You've detailed everything, so that's really strong. Same thing here, compare more. Your linking words are okay, but could have more variety. And then there's like, okay, referencing, it's like easy to understand. So that's all good. So probably around the 6. Same thing here as task 2. It's like basic, accurate, mostly formal parts, generally strong. Again, probably around the 6. And same thing around here. Some little mistakes in most sentences. Some good complexity, little mistakes throughout. Nothing like really high level. So if you get like a 7, 6, 6, 6, that's still going to be a 6 overall. If you make a mistake with the overview, then that's how you can, most students will drop this score down to a 5. And then if you get like a 5, 6, 6, 6, then you get a 5.5 overall. But you did well with the overview, so it's okay. But like that's where you should be careful. If most students in China will make a mistake with the overview. So be careful with that. That could get you a 5.5 if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, you did fine with the overview. So yeah, everything is strong in this one. Do you have any questions about this one?
Yes. You look at my essay. I usually use the same subject. It's always repeated, like machine, or the that's the vacuum cleaners. I always repeat it. But I try to alter another word, but I'm afraid I would make something wrong.
What's the word you try to change?
Nothing, no word.
So, like, for example, for these ones, you can't really change these ones. These ones are like, there's no other way to say washing machine, no other way to say refrigerator, vacuum. I mean, there are some other ways, but you can just leave these ones the same. That's okay. But then other words you can try to change a little bit, but don't worry about it too much. Sometimes students only change a word if you're 100% sure, right? So like when you practice, you can change lots of words, and then you'll make lots of mistakes. That's okay, because then you will learn. You'll learn this word's right or this one's wrong. But on the real test, obviously, it's not about learning. It's about getting a good score. So on the real test, only change a word if you are 100% sure. Because if you change it and it's not right, then it can hurt your score a lot. But if you just kind of keep it the same, it's like basic, then you might still be able to get a good score. So it's not a good risk usually. Maybe if you're 99% sure, okay. But otherwise, like, it's not really a good risk to take. It's better to just like leave it basic if you're not sure. But when you practice, then you can do lots of changing the words, try a lot of different things. Any other questions?
And do you think my sentence need more simple and reduce the complex sentence?
For task 1, no. Task 1, I think it's okay. You're able to write kind of longer sentences. They make sense. Doesn't have too many mistakes, so it's okay for task 1. For task 2, yeah, they're too long, too complex. But for task 1, no, it's totally fine. You also had some shorter sentences here, right? Like that one and this one as well. So you have some shorter sentences. But you do kind of write it a little bit long. So some of the sentences are maybe a little bit too long. You could write, you could write some really simple sentences. Like even with this one, you could say, like just like in terms of housework. First. Per week or per month, yeah. So like just like a little bit more simple, maybe if you've only got like 2 pieces of data, but then when you've got more pieces of data, I think it's okay.
Oh, okay.